Well, hey everybody, it's your good old pal EmptyHero, and today, by the power of my chosen deity, Shub Nigga Please, we're gonna contemplate the craziest collection of calamitous celestial creatures since the last Bilderberger meeting, Eternal Darkness. In this Resident Evil Pop a Thorazine Please edition, players assume the role of Buffy the Vampire Slayer's favorite digital understudy, Alexandra Roivas, whose last name is Savior spelled backwards, and whose first name is pronounced Fanuglui Miglonanaf Katulurai Wagalniglal Fitagan, if you try to say it while gargling my balls like syphilitic Listerine. Don't believe me? Try it at home. On her epic quest to figure out who her dead grandfather gave head to, so she can finally escape the existential dread of being stranded indefinitely on Rhode Island. Alexandra's plight began aeons earlier, when multitudes of malignant monstrosities happened upon our reality while walking home from a Hillary Clinton's genitalia lookalike convention, but were unable to pass us around like a cosmic cum sleeve thanks to the anthropomorphization of the Satosphere, cock-blocking them more thoroughly than a sudden knock on your secret basement door. For millennia they struggled, urging the tiniest particles of their influence into our reality, like an uncle who comes in your milkshake, inching ever closer towards their goal of bursting the barriers of time and space which bind them, until an avatar of their avarice arrived. Pius Augustus, whose name is Latin for apple pie, went in search of a pack of Trojans after finding a veritable Doug Trio family reunion of anal warts on his young courtesan's boy Pussy, but stumbled upon the interdimensional nexus of the Elder God's influence instead, after unraveling a mystery that generations have faded from history while failing to solve, by first placing 4 granite blocks into their color-coded receptacles, then touching one of 3 Lovecraftian hors with the tip of his penis. Pius unknowingly established a covenant with one of 3 outer gods, including the green Sauron's Eye of Jealousy, a Kabuto, and the puddle of cum that coagulated in the trap in my kitchen sink for so long that it became self-aware, granting him immortality and unquenchable hatred for He-Man, and the Eldritchian ability to shit while doing a backflip and fuck the turd 5 times before it hits the ground, which is of course also known as performing a mid-air Joe Jackson. In less time than it takes to get a wall built in Texas, Kareem Abdul-Jablumpkin, a boy so thirsty he'd sip rancid tuna juice off a porn theater floor, sets out on an epic quest to collect a doggy bag of Red Lobster leftovers for some salacious seaman sommelier, so she can saddle the seafood stench sifting from betwixt her legs on it instead. Fortunately for Kareem's immune system, Chandra got thought audited by some guy she fucked the moment Kareem left the room, and her ghost prevents him from actually touching the outer god's dangling participle, lest it turn him into another Pius, and recruits him to join Randy Stair's ghost squad instead. One increment of time it takes to listen to about 5 minutes of Hannah Gadsby's comedy later, a Frankish delivery boy bursts open a letter intended for Emperor Charlemagne in hopes that it contains lewd etchings of Joan d'Arc, but receives a full-on firebolt facial from the Elder Gods instead. This phantasmic plague, intended for the one mortal capable of interfering with the machinations of the multi-dimensional monstrosities, slowly turns our hero into Michael Jackson, drives him insane, and perhaps the most devastating of all, as Anthony circumnavigates the haunted halls filled with trapper bugs who occasionally banish him to the dimension of padding, the curse causes him to dab uncontrollably like some mame-loving zoomer fuck! Faster than you could count the sperms in her stomach, some blowgun-sucking slut named Elia stumbles onto a level recycled from Crash Bandicoot in search of a meaty gaping hole that rivals her own. Now, I'm not just saying that because I want to strap her tits to my face and bust up an entire house worth of drywall with her shoulder blades, but because the supposedly neutral fertility god Mantarok inhabits this arcane arena and has drawn her forth from the ether in order to, like many thirsty beta males before him, entrust her with his own beating heart. In exchange, she immediately takes a fall for the belching baron of beeflips and a perfectly good set of tits, holes, armpits, and backs of the knees goes to waste as a result. Now, if that seems odd to you, keep in mind that I, like the noble Native Americans, feel it is my responsibility to use every part of the woman, lest her sacrifice be in vain, or easily discovered by the authorities. Which is incidentally why they had to shave my mom's head at the old folks' home after the all-dead hooker's pubes babushka I knitted to comfort her after the latest miscarriage turned out to be infested with crabs. But that was really my own fault for drying my nuts off with it a couple of times after swimming in the public kiddie pool, so I digress. Though this off-site storage of Mantarok's essence prevents Pius's seal from destroying it outright, keeping the other gods in check, it begs the question, why didn't Pius bother searching Elia's clothing, let alone the sweet tuna and cheese hot pocket sizzling between her legs? I figured he'd be all for that considering his full-body boner. Two Duke Nukem development cycles later, Roberto Bianchi, Venetian engineer and fat tub of shit extraordinaire, is forced to inspect the structural integrity of the zombie-infested monument beneath the Forbidden City, because he's too goddamn stupid to steal some of the scaffolding and exit the way he came in the moment the guards aren't looking. To this end, he wades through asparagus piss, jams an Elder God essence into his fanny pack, then gets dropped by Augustus into the most horrific pillar of flesh beheld by mortals, since my own priapismic penis, after some thoughtless trollop slammed it in her car door about 5 times while trying to escape. I mean, the visceral pain, years of reconstructive surgery, and the screams of her children echoing throughout my mind were one thing, but deep down, I believe it was the baseless rejection of my romantic advances that hurt me the most. Seconds later, relatively speaking, Paul Luther, whose last name was inspired by Anderson Cooper comparing his O-ring to the skirt of a hot air balloon, arrives at the Oubliette Cathedral in Amiens, then falls prey to an unexpected Spanish Inquisition, gives Anthony a little metaphysical Visine for his red eye, then has his mind blown after realizing Pius allowed a black guy into the cathedral basement without making him dress up like an altar boy first. One John Petrucci guitar solo later, Alexander's great-grandpep Maximilian Roivias realizes that his Mexican mates weren't just stealing the silverware and cum scrapings from the back of his pants in hopes of squatting on the reconstituted prostate paste, then birthing a half-Caucasian meal ticket, but also each other's bones. His suspicions were first aroused when he noticed that the chicken legs served at dinner were floppier than the melancholy mice scooting towards his boot like fuzzy jellyfish in hopes that he'd stomp them out of their misery, much in the same way he often did to the aforementioned Mexi maid's moneymaker. After discovering the same Necronomicon knockoff everyone else has been foolishly collecting, instead of just using the hand that held it to give themselves an otherworldly spank job, he attempted to gentrify a bad neighborhood, conducted a threesome with a beast with 2 backs, but no mouth to blab to the police that he fucked it at Elephant Gun Point, and is later shut up in a nut hut after he went to the police for help and they decided he was a bigot for returning from a project without first having received his customary sucker punch to the back of the head from a good boy who didn't do nothing. Later, during the greatest global conflict since that time I got my salty Sicilian skivvy snake stuck in a Lithuanian leg lock while forcibly Frenching a Haitian hooker who lost to me in a round of Russian roulette. The Oubliette Cathedral is converted into a field hospital, so Augustus can secretly feed the wounded to his glorified crack house pitbull, and field reporter Peter Jacob arrives in an attempt to channel the future of fake news by finding a way to blame Donald Trump for the disappearances. One tantalizing Trisomy 21 treat tossed aside, and one hate crime later, Peter walks away with an Elder God niblet, and becomes one of the only protagonists to survive. 4 Steven Spielberg love slave lifespans later, Edward Rovias, head still intact, inherits the family estate, and by the power of his favorite flask of Punch My Wife until she promises to stop talking about leaving me juice, braves the hellacious halls of Enga in order to utilize its own magical focal points to damage it beyond repair, then kinda does nothing for 40 years because he was far too busy with Benjamin Franklin lookalike competitions and farting in the Mantarok's heart container, knowing that the Elder God would have to endure the diabolical Dutch oven through every dimension and for all time. in about the time it used to take between Star Wars trilogies, Dr. Edwin Lindsay, whose introduction goes out of its way to mention that he has had dysentery, just so the players will know that he smells like wet shit and banana leaves, uses his vast knowledge of feather dusting to unearth Elia's smellia bellia, and accidentally claims Mantarok's heart while trying to touch a taxidermy titty. Soon after, a black man does what comes naturally by having a key to civilizations beyond his comprehension just gifted to him, destroys generations-old infrastructure, then breaks my suspension of disbelief by picking up a book that doesn't have a naked woman or football player on the cover. This can't be happening! Having uncovered all of these events by completing such arduous tasks as lighting candles and reading a bit while taking a shit, our initial hero Alexander takes the fight to the bone zone, passes through the halls of game-length padding, summons the elemental Pokemon opposite of Pius's, treats poor Pius like one of the several unwanted beige fetuses she's been ruining the plumbing by flushing alongside massive Chinese buffet shits after poking it in the heart with a coat hanger for years, then seals up her Pokemon because she was too stupid just to use that same mechanism to seal up Pius's elder god in the first place. Further playthroughs reveal that these events were orchestrated by Mantarok in order to eliminate the other elder gods, thus enabling him to inherit their magic, the gathering card sets, and condos by default. Well, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, you should seek psychiatric help immediately. Then use the link in the description of this video to join my Discord so you can receive alerts for when I live stream or post some fat anime titties. Check out one of my original ebooks, paperbacks, or audiobooks. Toss $1 at me on Patreon for a vote on which topic I'll make a video about next. Or convince some Jewish bankers to collaborate with Dennis Dyack so they can finally fund a sequel to Eternal Darkness, while simultaneously putting the Heeb in heebie-jeebies. Until then, thanks for your time and